All right. Hello, everyone. You see one of those giant container ships gliding across the water, and you have to wonder, legally speaking, what is that thing? And maybe even weirder, how can something that literally never stops moving have a single permanent address? Well, today we're going to dive right into the deep end of maritime law to figure out the answers to those exact questions.
So here's what we've got on tap. First, we're going to lay out the two big questions we need to answer. Then we'll get into what makes a ship such a special kind of asset in the eyes of the law. After that, we'll track down its official home, its domicile. And finally, we'll connect all the dots and see why this stuff is absolutely crucial for, the entire global economy.
Okay, let's jump in. It's kind of wild when you think about it, but the whole legal framework that keeps trillions of dollars in global trade afloat, it all really boils down to the answers to two simple but super important questions.
So question number one, what actually is a ship, a safina, and what's its legal personality? And then question two, what on earth is a ship's domicile? Its official home. And why should we even care? Okay, let's start with that first one.
All right, so what is a ship? It sounds like a simple question, right? You see it, you know it. But in the legal world, the definition is incredibly precise. And honestly, it's the secret to understanding why ships are treated so differently from almost anything else. Okay, so legally speaking, a ship or a safina is what they call a floating maritime establishment. Now, what does that really mean? Well, two things are absolutely key here. It has to be built for navigating on the water, and it has to be strong enough to face all the dangers of the sea. It doesn't matter if it's carrying cargo, people, whatever, it has to be seaworthy.
So your first instinct is probably to think, okay, a ship is just a big piece of movable property, right? You can move it from point A to point B without it falling apart. Simple enough. But this is exactly where maritime law gets really interesting and throws a huge wrench in the works.
Okay, think about something like your phone or even your car. If you've got it in your hand, if you have the keys, the law pretty much says, yep, it's yours. That's a core legal idea. Possession is title. But when it comes to ships, maritime law just throws that rule right out the window. Seriously. Being the captain, standing on the deck, holding the wheel, none of that proves you own the ship. Possession is absolutely not proof of ownership here.
So, that leads to a pretty big question, doesn't it? If having the ship isn't enough to prove you own it, then what in the world is? Well, the answer is fascinating, because the law decided to treat these massive moving objects a lot more like a house that's stuck to the ground.
It all comes down to paperwork, just like buying a house. Any major transaction, I'm talking buying, selling, you name it, has to be documented in an official deed. But that's not all. That deed then has to be officially recorded in a public ships registry. Think of it like a county records office, but for ships. This public record is everything. It's why a bank feels safe enough to lend millions for a ship mortgage. Their interest is officially on the books. And it also creates these powerful tools like maritime privileges, which basically let certain creditors jump to the front of the line to get paid no matter who owns the ship.
And look, this isn't just some dusty old legal idea. It is written black and white right into the law. Article 4 of the Maritime Trade Act basically says, hey, all the usual rules for valuable property apply to ships, except for that whole possession thing. Just ignore that part completely. That one sentence is huge. It's what officially gives ships their unique legal status.
So, what's the bottom line for our first question? A ship is a movable thing, for sure, but it plays by a totally different set of legal rules. It's got the mobility of a car, but the legal paperwork of a skyscraper, and that makes it a totally unique kind of asset in the world.
Okay, so we figured out that a ship is this unique legal creature. That brings us right to our second big puzzle. How do you legally pin down an asset that's designed to never stay still? How do you give a permanent address to something that's always on the move across oceans? The answer is a really smart legal fiction called the domicile.
A ship's domicile, its Matin al-Safina, is nothing more than its official port of registration. That's it. It's the one port city on the entire planet where that vessel is legally on the books in that official registry we talked about. You can think of it as the ship's permanent legal address, even if it's currently thousands of miles away in the middle of the Pacific.
And the law is an absolute stickler about this. A ship gets one domicile, period. If you want to change it, you have to officially unregister it from the old port before you can register it in the new one. And why are they so strict? To avoid total legal chaos. It guarantees that there is always one and only one undisputed legal home for that ship.
Now, here's a really common point of confusion we need to clear up. We have to separate the legal domicile from what's called the port of exploitation.
So for example, a ship could be legally registered in, say, Alexandria. That's its domicile. But it might spend every single day of the year working out of Singapore. The domicile is its permanent legal address on paper. The port of exploitation is just, well, where it happens to be working right now.
Okay, so a ship is a special asset, and it has a fixed legal home. But so what? Why does any of this legal stuff actually matter? This is where we connect these ideas to the real world, because the consequences are massive.
So yeah, why all the fuss about giving a permanent address to something that's built to roam the globe? It really all comes down to one thing: creating legal certainty and order in a place, the open ocean, that has none.
Honestly, the ship's domicile is pretty much its entire legal identity. It's like its birth certificate, passport, and mailing address all rolled into one. It does 4 incredibly important jobs. First, it gives the ship its nationality, the flag it flies. Second, it decides the competent court. If there's a legal battle, the courts in the domicile's country get the case. Third, it's the official filing cabinet, the one place where all those deeds and mortgages are kept. And finally, it's the official mailbox. If you need to serve legal papers on the ship's owner, that's the address you send them to.
So, to put it simply, the domicile is the ship's legal anchor. It doesn't stop the ship from moving physically, but it tethers it firmly to one country's laws. And that provides the stability and predictability that everyone, from owners to banks to governments, needs to make the whole system work, no matter where that ship happens to be.
When you step back and look at it, what maritime law does here is pretty amazing. It's a brilliant legal sleight of hand. It takes this giant, moving, ridiculously expensive asset and legally nails it to one single spot on the globe. And that's not just some clever trick for law books. It's the absolute foundation that our entire system of global trade is built on. It really just goes to show you, to bring order to the chaos of the open sea, the very first thing you have to do is give every ship a place it can legally call home.